So good morning. Again, I'm Daniel Oliveira. I'm here today with Keith Kritzer, with ExxonMobil, and Brian Wellesley with United ENC. We are going to cover our request for nominations. That's when we invite our membership to engage, nominate people for our future research projects. Today, we're going to get questions through the interface that you all have. You can type questions and we will go over the questions at the end. So if you have a question, type it in. We will answer questions at the end. And I'm seeing people jumping in here. So, but I'd like to get started. Our presentation today, really the goal is to explain our new projects and how you get engaged, what it means to participate in a project. So we'll give a little bit of an introduction about CII research, but we'll also cover the expectations for research team members and give you a very short overview of the topics this year. We can definitely cover topics in more specifics in the Q&A, but we'll glance over the list. We really want you to understand what do we mean by a research project, what does it take to participate, what it means to be a participant in a team. So that's our main focus. So I will now ask Keith to present for us.
Good morning. My name is Keith Kritzer. I'm with ExxonMobil Global Projects Company. I've been with ExxonMobil for 20 years, and before that, 4 years, I was with a commercial construction contracting company out of Baltimore, Maryland called Whiting Turner. So I got involved with CII in 2011, and my first interaction with CII was on the Advanced Work Packaging Research Team 272. So those of you that are familiar with Advanced Work Packaging, there was a founding team, and then they did some implementation tools, and I was on the second part, and then there's been multi-parts since then. So it's really grown as a best practice with CII. But that was my first interaction with CII. Before that, ExxonMobil, or Exxon at the time, was one of the founding members of CII in 1983. And CII was really founded because there was no real organization that did research in the construction field. So those of you that are familiar with oil and gas, in 1980, 1981, oil was like $100 a barrel, and then in 1982 it went to $10 a barrel. But at the time, construction costs were out of control. The contracting community was struggling to handle all the work that was going on, and so owners, contractors, and service providers got together with the University of Texas and formed CII to perform research in the construction field. So here we are 40 years later, and CII is still primarily four stakeholders: owners that own the asset, contractors that build the assets, suppliers that provide services and goods to make the projects work, and then academics that help really power the engine of research in the field. But ExxonMobil really appreciates CII because of the academic piece of it, the rigor around the research, and that whole process to make sure that when there is a topic that has a paper that's prepared and delivered to the industry, that it has been vetted using a rigorous, robust, academically reviewed process. So we really appreciate that versus other things that either people are trying to sell, products, or other industry groups that are more kind of networking. And this is really around what kind of tangible products or research products can we use to make our construction performance and our project delivery better, which will improve our business results. So that's really what we get out of it. And we feel like CII is still on track with that mission. Next slide. So research team engagement value. So as I said earlier, my first research team was RT272, Advanced Work Packaging, in 2011. And we had a really, really good team of contractors, owners, and service providers. And we had two fantastic academic principal investigators, and we had a very strong chair. And we worked on this thing for probably, well, it was 2.5 years, and really got a lot of collaboration and discussion. ExxonMobil is primarily oil and gas, but we had people from EPC contractors that do other industries. We had people from other companies in commercial construction. So it was a really broad group of folks with a lot of very diverse backgrounds that really provided different perspectives to solve the problem. So I felt like we got a lot out of it and put a lot into it. So my next research team was RT311, which was flash track projects, which is faster than fast track. And that was a different experience, but similarly good, where we had different industry members that were involved in that. So there were a lot of we had a lot of power company people. We had some conglomerate people like Procter and Gamble folks, and so it was again a different perspective on that problem. So I found that I really get a lot out of it in that I meet people in different industries, and you can see how they do it versus your company does it. It's also a safe harbor environment for competitors. Like, so Shell's a member, Chevron's a member. So as a result, you can talk with some of the other companies that you normally wouldn't talk to in a safe environment, and solve industry problems together as a group. So, Brian, you want to talk a little bit about what you get out of it?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Yeah, I'll just mention my first research team experience was back in the 2008 timeframe with RT245. The topic was optimizing engineering value in capital projects, and for me, it was my first formal experience, direct with the CII activity. I thought it was a tremendous opportunity, specifically to collaborate with peer contractors as well as owners and suppliers on a subject that was critical to our business at the time. And from my perspective, that's one thing we've tried to do is align obviously topics that we're interested to us with some of our subject matter experts, so we could both contribute and learn, from the actual research team assignment. And I felt I was able to do that at that time. And I guess, all in all, I guess the one comment I would share is I think it was just a tremendous benchmarking opportunity to kind of look at things through a slightly different lens than the day-to-day environment, within our company. Just a little bit of background on myself, like Keith said, I'm with United E&C Inc., or United Engineers and Constructors. I've been with the company relatively 20 years, and its legacy companies, which include Morrison, Knudsen, Washington Group, which is really where the entree to CII came from, as well as United Engineers and Constructors. It's kind of a round trip now through the M&A business. So I'll just leave it at that on the 245 experience. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, Keith and Brian. So I would like to cover a little bit, and it's kind of repeating somewhat what was said, but everything that we do here at CII, all the projects, they start with a problem or question that our industry members bring. So when you look at our list of topics, all those topics came from our membership. And obviously, we thought that we don't have a solution for the problems, some broader, some narrower. But that's when we think that we need a research project. When if we had the solution, we could just develop a tool. So we form a group of academics and industry members that will look into that problem. And at the end of the day, we'll have that solution, hopefully. Um, a core thing of the result is that we want people to trust what was done. And that trust is based on, the rigor that we had in the project, done, which was enabled by the methodology, the research methodology that the academics are bringing. So academics bring this research methodology, the industry members bring the expertise, and together they solve this question or problem that initiated the project. We do that. We form that team. Normally, we aim at 15, 20 people in a team. We always want the team to have a diverse set of backgrounds and types of organizations involved. We want a balance between the owners, contractors, service providers, suppliers that we engage in the team. They spent 1 year, 2 years, a period of time drawing from the expertise that is in the team, but also sometimes outside the team. They engage people through interviews, workshops, to capture information beyond the team expertise. And then at the end of the project, we disseminate that through normally a CII event, right? We present at a conference. But definitely we are always looking for different ways to disseminate the findings, right? And really drive, that's the important moment where the outcome, may be implemented, right? Someone sees that and decides to implement it. So this dissemination part, I say, is a critical point for us. So that's where the project ends, but really where the value for members, start, right? That's taking the outcome and implementing it. A little bit on the life cycle of a project. So you look, we have defined the topic, and then we'll have a kickoff, and normally we will aim at July, as the early July is our target date for most kickoffs, not all. And then the team spends a couple of months looking into the scope and making sure that everyone is aligned. So we have an alignment phase. We normally get together with the team to see what was decided in terms of scope, right? So all the proposals you read right now, not proposals, but the topic summaries that we distributed along with a call for nominations, they are our starting point. But they are still very broad topics, and there is a need to narrow down and better define once you start the project, and that's what we do in these months here. And then normally, once you have more clear definition of what you want to do, you will plan the execution, do that together as a team. And then you go through the execution per se, like which normally starts more like a research perspective, right? Trying to collect data to define the problem, create models or have insights. And towards the end, most teams change a little bit more to a development mode where we are creating a resource, which may be an Excel tool, maybe a written document, something that people can use in their projects or companies. So there is this shift from a research perspective to a more, developing this resource. And at the very end, we call it dissemination. That's when we are preparing the presentation, when you are preparing any tools, right, finding tuning things. So we are ready to distribute it to members and to everybody, actually. So this is, in short, this is the life cycle of a 2-year project, right? You may have some 1-year projects that compress things a little bit more. One thing that we're really driving recently is this intermediate outcomes and deliverables. I think many times, we spend 2 years working kind of in secrecy, but I think there is a lot of value. We've been playing with this in past projects with success, defining intermediate deliverables that, force the team to show something to the members and people can react to it. So we have the second part of the project builds on the initial part, and we have very successful cases where we build on these intermediate outcomes. So we are more and more driving this type of outcomes halfway through the project. So a little bit on meeting logistics. All throughout that life cycle, the team is meeting mostly. 3-4 years ago, maybe 4 times per year, face-to-face meetings. Obviously, we didn't do that recently. We believe that throughout this year next, we'll still not go back to the normal 4 meetings per year or more. We think we'll live in a hybrid world where we'll have a couple of face-to-face meetings, but mostly accommodating for virtual remote participation. So we believe that we'll have limited travel, but still, hopefully being able to schedule a couple of meetings per year face-to-face, hybrid meetings, more frequent online calls. Most teams have gone through, calls every other week to keep, so we don't meet for a full day, but instead we meet more frequently for 1 or 2 hours. Some teams have adopted sprints in the sense that they meet more frequently for a couple of months where they really need to get the project started, and then they meet less frequently while they're collecting data, and then they do another sprint. So that's another concept, but also online mostly. We're asking the teams to use more collaborative tools online to make the meetings more engaging. And eventually we'll ask the members to host face-to-face meetings. We always rely on members to host these meetings whenever we have them. Attendance is critical for project success. The academics rely on the industry, experts to really drive the project, like to make it successful. So, we hope that when you engage in one of these teams, that participation is really important. And normally we look at when people stop showing up, we want to make sure that we give opportunity to other people that may still be interested. So we are always talking to members, maybe because people really got busy, something happened, new job assignment, things change. So we are constantly monitoring that because really we rely on participation to make the project successful. Then I'll turn to Brian here to go over our 2022 topics.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Yeah, we have a pretty good slate of topics this year. Actually, 8, which is pretty significant. I'm just going to walk through them quickly, and if there are additional questions, we can pick them up during Q&A at the end. The first topic is leveraging culture and behavior to drive AWP success. You heard Keith talk about RT272, which was the first one for advanced work packaging, and this is the continued evolution of the AWP program and several topics. So another topic relative to AWP. The second one is revisiting and streamlining project controls methods. It's another, stop and pause to check on, improved current practice, to stop and check and improve, current work practices, best practices relative to project controls methods. The third topic is driving flexibility in the project lifecycle to enable faster responses to unforeseen business conditions. This is a relatively new topic relative to flexibility and resiliency in developing, and moving projects. The fourth topic is defining a path for the digital transformation of the capital project industry. Another technology topic looking to drive, the subject, further into our industry. What are the paths and, what are the practices? The fifth topic is addressing current barriers and rethinking quality management for capital projects. a continuation of some of the former quality topics, focusing on quality management. I mean, just a personal comment I'll share is, we as an industry focus so much on safety. It is, we always look at, what can we do to continue to further improve quality in our projects. The sixth topic regards another technology-associated topic is defining CII's priorities and opportunities for research related to data sharing. This is a shorter-term project. These last projects, I should note, are shorter in duration. They're kind of, quicker-hitting research projects as compared to the typical two-year evolution. So this is to address yet another evolving and emerging topic. The seventh topic is understanding the mental health crisis in the construction industry. This is unfortunately a real and evolving, issue. So this is to address, like I said, a current challenge in the industry. And then the last topic is recognizing and retaining beneficial changes from the pandemic on the workforce. This is another short duration research topic. It's, as a society, we were forced to do things different, and many times we don't change. So the issue here is to look at, so how did our workforce change? How did our work practices change, either for the worse or the better during the pandemic? And how should we look at that going forward, addressing both the field as well as the office environment. I'll just quickly move to the next slide, if that's okay, to just talk about some high-level expectations for RT members and then RT leaders. But just in general, I mean, you can summarize all of this to participation. I found through our experience that it was the participation of the team that really was, the key expectation. And, there's multiple facets. The first one is to, I'll say be a subject matter expert, but it's more to be, familiar around the subject, to engage the conversation. The research is done through a process, not just the individuals on the research team. But, typically, I can even talk from our company's past experience. We typically try to align, someone, who knows the subject matter, can contribute the subject matter, but also gain from the experience. Support the data collection process, the actual research process through the team and through, other processes that are going to be performed by the team. Support the interpretation of the results, leading to conclusions, findings, and recommendations, and then supporting the deliverables, relative to any, research summaries, as well as research reports, or just, best practices going forward, to implement the topic. I'll just skip to the next page again. Moving more specifically to the chair and vice chair, looking, for folks to lead the team. And these are some additional expectations for those that would want to, lead the effort. Overall, I would summarize it to be lead and facilitate. It would be to work with the academics and the team, to plan the activities, to plan the slate of meetings, and then coordinate the logistics associated with getting them set up. Daniel said they typically, bounce around to different, different participants on the research team to host the meeting. So it's to, to coordinate those logistics. And then obviously, lead, with respect to setting up the meetings, facilitating the meetings, documenting the meetings relative to, key path forward action items, to keep the team moving, and then communicate. The team does often communicate back, to, the broader CII audience, to provide, updates on how things are moving, working with the academics. So you would be a spokesperson for the team during the research process. Daniel, I'll turn it back to you perhaps to cover the next item on the 2022 requirements.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So just to outline here, when we form our teams, we want to maximize opportunities for companies for member companies, right? So we set some boundaries and we say we normally limit the participation of one person per company per project. Again, the intention is like make sure that we allow as many companies as possible, not only in numbers, but also we want to balance the number of contractors, owners, suppliers, right, as much as possible. We set the deadline for nominations to March 28. Now, this is not the final day where we're going to finalize the teams. Once we have the nominations, we'll look at what we have, and then we have a CII board meeting just after that, and we will share to show where we are. And some teams may need additional people. Some teams may have the right numbers, but maybe not the right diversity and background that we expected. So we may, talk to our board members again to see if we can diversify that background in the teams. So for us, that's a partial deadline, right? But it's really, we want to have a snapshot of where the nominations are. Do we have the right background? Do we have the right diversity in each team? Another point here, only employees of CII member companies can join a team. So for us, that's a long-standing rule for us. And all the nominations need to be vetted by the board members. So the board members actually are the ones with the link to the forms. But once we have all the nominations ready, we always we'll ask the board members to vet, to go over the list, make sure that they are aware of all the nominations, and that they're okay with it. Here, if you are interested in the project and you don't know who your board member is, you can contact Christy Delaney. So at kldelaney@cii.utexas.edu, and she will let you know who you should talk to, who's your board member. So those are, in a nutshell, like the requirements for the nominations. And I think Brian said something about, yes, it's right. Like we want the background to be there, but we also like having people that are maybe not an expert on the topic, but are there to learn and bring back to their companies. So that's also desirable. The only note that we make is we can't have the entire team, right, of non-experts. So we actually like to balance between also people that are experts and maybe less seasoned people that are there to learn, but also to bring different questions, right? Because they will challenge and ask things that other people would take for granted. They may be able to question that, and I think that's a healthy type of behavior to have in the team. Here, just to wrap up, a timeline of where we are and where we are going this year. So we made the request for nominations, so it's out. We are here today doing this webinar, and we're going to wait until March 28th to have a first snapshot of where the nominations are. So we'll send reminders in the meantime, but then we'll meet with our board in April, and share with them what we have so far. We may be ready to kick off our teams. We may need additional people to some teams. So there is still some additional time to do that. And if you're a board member, you'll notice that, normally we'll do the request for qualifications in April. But normally that was a very short notice when we wanted to kick off the teams in July. So that's why this year we are really starting earlier to give us more time. So the board meeting now is just an additional milestone in the process where we want to revisit the nominations and work where we need to work. After the board meeting, we'll really finish the nominations for send announcements for the kickoff meetings and kick off in June and July. Most projects we are planning to kick off in July. The exceptions are the quality team. It's probably going to be later in the year because there is a little study that we are conducting before that team starts. And the safety and the the COVID lessons learned, the pandemic lessons learned projects, we are aiming at kicking off a little bit early, May, maybe May, maybe June. So the smaller, the 2 one-year projects maybe earlier, and the quality project later. All the other projects is the early July is our target date for kickoff meetings. So and that's our presentation. We didn't cover any specific topics. We would be glad to talk about specific topics if you have questions. We will share the slides through the wiki page that we set up for this, and we'll send them to our board members. So we'll share the slides and recording. And we also have information about each topic in the wiki page. But we are glad to answer questions now. Any questions that you have related to the topics or to the process. So we'll be glad to address those.
Thanks, Daniel. I do have a couple of questions for you. So just a reminder, if you guys do have questions now, go ahead and type them in the control panel box under the questions tab. So the first question, Daniel, are there more detailed write-ups on each of the research topics?
Yes, we do, and they're in a wiki that we sent the link along with the e-blast and also in the email to the board members. So if you revisit the link, the e-blast that we sent, you'll find a link to a wiki page. You have each topic has a 2-3 page description of the topics. We will send reminders of that, and I'm not sure how to share a link right now if through to you all, but we will send a follow-up with the link.
Perfect. Yeah, you could probably drop a link into the chat, but yeah, the follow-up is good. So second question, are any of these topics sector specific, or do they apply to all of the sectors?
We call them overarching in the sense that they apply to all sectors. So the way we worked this year is that I worked with the Community for Business Advancement and sectors to identify these overarching topics. So funded studies helped with all that, the funded studies committee. So all the topics you are seeing here are the overarching topics, and the sectors are working on their topics, and the nominations go through a slightly different process, more focused on each sector committee. So these are all overarching topics.
Perfect. That is that completes our questions from the audience.
So Jenny, how can I share like this? I'm not sure if you can find the chat here.
Oh, the chat should be just under it's on that
questions?
toolbar. It just shows a bubble. I do have another question though, but hang on. There was a bubble that has kind of a conversation. Oh, you found it. Okay, perfect. So let me give you.
There's a link there to the wiki now in the chat area.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, so let's pull that question back out. Oh, we're getting more. Okay. Since most of the projects are running for 2 years, what happens if a team member stops being an employee of a CII member company due to resignation or retirement or moving on? How do you guys handle that?
So most of the time, we have to remove the member from the team. We acknowledge the participation in the report of the person, but at that point, our policy is to remove the person from the roster. Actually, our Salesforce system removes the person from the roster automatically as we update the record.
Right.
I think in some cases we have, if the team is really close to the end, we have made exceptions, but the rule is that non-members would not be able to engage.
Okay, and another question here on digitization. Is CII looking for nominations from IT personnel or business owner type of people?
That's a good question. We try to list the backgrounds that we are looking at for each topic, but this is always an open area. I think the bottom line is like both, right? We would like to have a team that can have the business, can understand the business requirements, but we also would like to have people able to address the technical aspects of it. So I think, you know, since you are limiting for each company, one person per company, you'd have to make a choice. But the short answer is both. You know, and it's hard to know right now where you're going to land, right? I guess if you're short on one aspect, we would go after the other, you know, the other background. But feel free, like, to consider both sides, both types of backgrounds.
Perfect. That is the last question that we have received, Daniel.
Okay, well, I wanted to thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Keith, Brian, for joining me today here. Thank you, Jenny, for helping us today here with the webinar. Wish you all a good weekend, and so if you have questions, we are always glad to address the questions. We're happy to talk to you over the phone or email. And thank you again for attending today.
And for those of you who were not able to access the chat, for whatever reason, we will circle back with that link via email. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Daniel, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, take care.